Disclaimer: the content presented in Horror Story YouTube channel is intended for entertainment purpose only. Horror stories should be viewed as a fictional stories such. Any resemblance to actual events, locals or personals, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Viewer caution is advised as a content may contain themes or scenes that some viewer may find disturbing. Parental guidance is recommended for younger audience. The channel does not promote or condone any real life actions despite in the stories. Viewer caution is strongly advised. Welcome to Horror Stories. On this channel, I am Pandit, share with you paranormal incidents and activities. These are real events experienced by our loved ones. So today's true story was shared by Sunny about an incident that happened to his uncles in 2021. Sunny lives in Pune, Maharashtra with his parents and grandmother. His uncle who experienced this incident lived in Lal Mahal, which is about an hour and a half way away from Pune. Sunny explained that it was around Diwali in 2021. His uncle ran a wheel alignment business and his wife had gone to her parents' house with their two children. Suddenly, at 11 p.m. one night, Sunny's father received a call from his uncle's neighbor. The neighbor said the Sunny's uncle's wife has been at her parents' place for the past 2 or 3 days and his uncle has not come out of the house in the same period. Hearing this, Sunny's father was very surprised and told the neighbor that he would try to contact his younger brother. After several attempts to call Sunny's uncle, did not answer the phone. Sunny's father got worried. Sunny's father decided he will visit the next morning. However, shortly after, the neighbor called again and saying that Sunny's uncle was causing a disturbance inside the house and his screams could be heard from outside. The neighbors were all gathered outside but could not enter the house as they were not family members. Hearing this, Sunny's father became very anxious. He started his car and immediately drove to Lal Mahal. When he arrived at his brother's house, he saw that the house was locked from the inside and people were peering through the window. Sunny's father also went to the window and asked the people to let him see what was happening. When he saw what he saw, when he saw that left him stunned. He could hardly believe that the person inside was his brother because his behavior was so strange and it did not seem like he was even a resident of that house. When Sunny's father pushed through the crowd and reached the window, he saw that his younger brother had a sword in one hand and a bottle of alcohol in the other. He was wandering around the house, shouting, "I will kill everyone. I won't let anyone interfere. I have been wronged and I will deal with it everyone." Sunny's father wondered how the neighbor knew that his brother had not come out of the house for 2 days. As he asked, "Neighbor, how he knew this?" The neighbor took Sunny's father to the front of the house and showed him the milk packets, newspapers, and the other small groceries that had been lying there untouched for 2 days. The neighbor explained that they had been observing this from last 2 days. Sunny's father had spent a lot of time with tantric practitioners in his childhood, and they had taught him some mantras to use only in extreme situations. Sunny's father knocked on the gate and shouted, "Open the door! What was wrong with you? Why are you not opening the gate? I will break it down and come inside. There are many of us here. We will break the gate." Inside, they could hear laughter as it was not Sunny's uncle, but someone else. This scared the neighbors, but Sunny's father needed to get inside. He placed his hand on the gate and began chanting the mantras in his mind. Suddenly, the laughter stopped. There was a sound of bottle breaking, and everything went quiet. Sunny's uncle came to the gate, opened it, and sat down on a chair. Sunny's father went inside and looked for the broken bottle. He found it shattered in the bathroom and a shard had been slit under the bed. Sunny's father came outside and scolded his uncle. "What kind of drama is this? The entire neighborhood is watching your actions. Do you have any idea what's going on? You have a family. Have you gone mad?" His uncle just looked at him, smiled, and started laughing again. Sunny's father grabbed his uncle and said, "Come with me right now to my house." When neighbors tried to intervene, Sunny's uncle threw them away with incredible strength. Sunny's father began chanting the mantras again, held his uncle's hand, put him in the car, and brought him home. When they arrived home, Sunny's mother and grandmother were extremely frightened, worried about what had happened to Sunny's uncle and if Sunny's father would return safely. They told Sunny to go to sleep, but he could sense the fear and tension in the house. Sunny shared, "Brother, I was so scared. My soul was trembling when Uncle stepped inside the house. As soon as he entered, he started laughing loudly. My grandmother and my mother were not as scared, so they sent me to a room and told me to sleep, saying we would deal with it in the morning. Unfortunately, my uncle was made to sleep in the same room as me, while my father slept on a makeshift bed on the floor. The night passed without any incident, but I was only pretending to sleep." Sunny said, "Uncle Bhai, I cannot even describe how my night went. Sometimes I would cover my face with a pillow, sometimes pull the blanket over my head. It was winter, so at least I was not sweating, but the fear I felt inside was bone chilling. Every time I peeked out from under the blanket, I saw my uncle staring at me. I cannot tell you how I managed to get through that night." The next day, when everyone woke up, my uncle went to temple in the house, joined his hand, and started crying loudly, saying, "I made a mistake. I will never do it again." Sunny explained that his uncle was a devotee follower of Sai Baba, and there was a statue of Sai Baba in their house. He cried in front of it for hours before finally calming down. By that time, Sunny's father has called his uncle's wife and children back home, and they arrived by evening. After hearing about what happened at their house, you will be seriously shocked. The next day, when my aunt and cousins arrived, the uncle's behavior started changing. On Diwali, my aunt received numerous calls from relatives asking about my uncle's condition. Suddenly, my uncle looked at his wife and said, "Who are you talking to? Hang up the phone. Are you planning to run away? Will you leave me?" Sunny's grandmother, who also was his uncle's mother, glared at him and said, "She has not run away in all these years. Why would she now? People are calling to ask what's wrong with you." My uncle then lowered his head. That Diwali night, there was a lot of chaos. My uncle would get us repeatedly shouting and wandering around the house. All the children were terrified, including Sunny and his cousins. Sunny's mother and grandmother were also scared. Sunny's father just wanted the night to pass because they have heard that Diwali night was a very dark night, and these forces were at their peak. My uncle continued this drama all night, and the next day he suddenly calmed down and told his wife, "Let's go home." How will how long will celebrate Diwali here?" Everyone was shocked by his sudden change. The previous night he was creating so much drama, but now he was acting normal. He left with his wife and children and went back to Lal Mahal. For 3 or 4 months everything was fine. Then during the summer, a strange incident happened again. One night, while my aunt was sleeping with her children, my uncle suddenly got up and started choking her. She tried to scream, but he was out of control. Somehow, she managed to free herself and immediately called Sunny's father, telling him everything. Sunny's father drove through the night to reach them and brought everyone, including my uncle, back to their home. When they arrived, they struggled to get my uncle to sleep. My aunt explained how he had tried to strangle her. Everyone, including Sunny, his father, and grandmother, listened and wondered what was happening. As they discussed, my uncle, who was sleeping, suddenly woke up and said, "Turn off that fan. It will fall on me. It's going to fall for sure." He looked around and said, "He's coming to kill me. Save me, brother. Save me, mother. He's coming to kill me." Then suddenly he fainted. Everyone thought he had lost his mental balance and to decided he needed to see a doctor. They consulted many doctors, but none could diagnose his condition. They suspected a split personality disorder or something similar, but could not pinpoint the issue. Finally, a very famous doctor, whose name I won't mention, started treating him. Sunny's parents were given some medicines and instructed to give them to my uncle one on time for a month. They were told if the medication was given on regular basis, he would be fine. Otherwise, problems could raise. But my uncle would always throw the medicine away. So Sunny's parents decided to crush the medicine and mix it with His food, believe it or not, my uncle would always detect the medicine in his food and refuse to eat it, saying, "You have tampered with this food. I won't eat it." After this incident, Sunny's grandmother, mother, and father were left wondering how to help him. Sunny's father continued to go to work as he could, but he cannot leave his job. Meanwhile, the situation with my uncle remained a significant concern. Sunny shared, Uncle Bahir, we lived on the seventh floor, and my uncle had a lot of issue with machines. He won't let us to use the phone, TV, fan, or AC. He always had some complaint. Gradually, everyone started keeping their distance from him. He was given a room without a fan, TV, or cell phone. I was sleeping with another room with my aunt and her children. One afternoon around 2 p.m., my uncle got up, went to the gate, and walked on seventh floor. Then he come back, went down again, and come back. He did it at least 8 to 10 times. Can you imagine? And he said, "Brother, we could not even manage one trip up and down the stairs, and he kept doing it continuously in the red hot heat. His shirt was drenched in sweat, but he had some kind of intense energy driving him. The whole family was worried and confused about what was happening. They consulted a doctor who suggested giving him sleeping pills, saying he needed rest. It took a lot of convincing from his mother and his grandmother to get rid of him to take the sleeping pills, and finally he fell asleep. When Sunny's father returned home and sat down, suddenly his uncle approached him and said, "You got a big house, but my house is small. I want to share. I want a share in this property." Sunny's father responded, "Are you out of your mind? Your wife and children are living here. Don't you consider this your home?" Suddenly his uncle threw water on Sunny's father and ran out of the house, heading towards the NH8 highway. Sunny recounted, "Bro, he ran straight onto the main road of the highway, and my father, aunt, and I had to chase him. We finally managed to catch him and bring him back home." His uncle started abusing everyone: Sunny's father, mother, aunt, and even his old children. Sunny said, "Brother, my mom tolerated it until he started abusing my dad. But when he abused her husband, that is my dad, my mom got extremely angry. She took a bat and broke his hand. That was the first time I saw my mother's anger. She was furious when it came to my dad. My uncle was only afraid of my mom. He would not act out when she was around. The situation continued for a year. My uncle, his wife, and children stayed with us while their house in Lal Mahal was locked up. For a year, Sunny's father tried to help his uncle return to normal, but there was no improvement. Finally, they contacted a priest. The priest came to their house, observed the situation, and said there was indeed a problem with his uncle. He performed some rituals during which his uncle cried and screamed, but was kept locked in a room. The priest placed something on the house and instructed a family not to let his uncle leave the premise for 15 to 20 days. Within a month, his uncle seemed to recover completely, as long as he stayed within the house and was not allowed to go outside. Seeing that his uncle had been fine for a month, the family hoped everything was back to normal. However, a month later, Sunny's grandmother had to attend some property matters in the village. Sunny's father, being busy with work, suggested she take his uncle, that is, her younger son, with her to handle the property matters. As soon as uncle crossed the walls of that house and reached the village, a call came from the village saying that your younger brother is calling disturbance here, throwing others people's belongings and speaking rudely to them. Sunny's father was extremely worried. He took his car and brought his uncle back from the village. They called the Aghori again, that is the priest, which they have called earlier. This time, Dagori said he was currently away and would come after 2 days. He gave a list of materials together, including a black cloth, some vermilion, some cloves, cardamom, mustard seed, and other items, and instructed them to keep these ready or when he arrived. When uncle returned home, he became completely calm within the boundaries of the house, as the negative entity was kept outside. 2 days later, the Aghori came, removed the protective charm from outside the house, and brought it inside. As soon as he did, uncle started acting again, jumping, cursing, breaking things, and throwing items. The Aghori looked in his eyes and said, "Sit down. and uncle suddenly sat down. Ghori asked if all the materials were ready and instructed them to start the havan. That's a ritual. As the horn began, the entire entity inside the uncle started reacting, screaming, I'm here, I have come, I will see everyone, I will kill them, they betrayed me, I will spare no one. The Aghori said, who are you and what do you want from this boy? The entity initially refused to reveal anything, saying, I won't tell you, I won't tell you. The Aghori got very angry and threatened, if you don't tell me, I will ask Mahadev to burn your ashes right here. You won't even find a place in hell. Terrified, the entity replied, don't do that, don't do that. I was betrayed too. I was not bad. I loved dearly. Daghori asked, what happened to you? The entity then narrated his story to uncle, saying, 40 years ago I lived happily with my wife. I loved her very much, but she betrayed me, conspired with her lover, and killed me one night. They buried me somewhere, and I waited there day and night for someone to come and listen to me. One day, just before Diwali, this gentleman came near where I was buried. He had eaten something sweet, and the scent reached me. I could not resist, and I feel a strange power. I asked him for a lift as he was passing by on his bike. He stopped, but he refused to take me to the spot. I clung to him. When he realized something was on his bike, he looked back and then, well, that's when I possessed him. The Agori said, what do you want now? Tell me your demands. The entity said, I want to eat meat. I have not had meat in a long time. They brought some meat from the market and uncle swallowed it like an animal. The Aghori then asked, what else do you want? The entity replied, no, I want to leave, but my wife is still living with that man. The Aghori reassured, don't worry about her. Everyone gets their karmic justice from the divine. The entity then folded its hand and said, all right, Baba, please guide me to my liberation. I don't want to stay in this world anymore. The Aghori performed the necessary ritual and asked the entity to show where it was buried. It directed them to the forest area between Uncle's house in Lal Mahal and his workspace. The Aghori said they would need to go there and perform pinda or ritual from the deceased. When they reached the location in Lal Mahal, they performed the pinda. Suddenly, Uncle arrived there on his bike at full speed, fell down near them, and fainted. As he fell, something visibly left his body and ascended towards the sky. The Aghori told Sunny's father that his brother was now completely cured and nothing like this would happen again. He advised them to take good care of him. Finally, before leaving, I request you all to please support my channel, subscribe horror stories, and turn on the bell notification so you get the latest video update first. Stay tuned to the channel until the next video. Thank you.